Welcome, everybody, to the Let Purple Rain podcast. Please like and subscribe. I'm your host, Joe Arpasi, otherwise known as Purple Rain. I started my CFF work all the way back in 2008, and after stepping away from the industry for 8 years, I returned in 2024 as Purple Rain. You can find me on X at the handle that you see on the screen, and you can find all of my content over at letpurplerain.com. I want to welcome today's guest, Josh Chevalier, CFF analyst at Fantasy Points since 2020. He is also the host of CFF All Access Podcast. You can find the show on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel at Fantasy Points, and you can follow him on X at the handle that you see on the screen. Josh, it's great having you on the show for the first time. How have you been? And tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing in this space.
Yeah, man, I've been doing well. I'm excited to be back on. It feels like this is my introduction back into the 2025 season. Took a break for a couple months. We'll have our podcast that comes back here in March. But man, been grinding away on rankings and projections and all those things that we need to do in order to get ready for best ball season, which leads into redraft and dynasty and all the things that we love. So, man, super excited to be on with you today, and excited, man. I've been drafting. I think I'm 3-4 best balls in at this point. So I'm excited to talk about the people that we've been picking and the philosophy behind it, and both our quarterbacks today. So,
Yeah, I was about to say, drafting wise, it's been kind of kicking off a bit here. We're airing here in the middle of March, and so any of you that are active on X, the carpet best ball leagues have been popping off. I've done one of the Diary of a Draft Man mock drafts so far. I'm going to have more coming up this year, and one thing I'm going to be doing new this year that you were pretty involved in last year was the underdog drafts. I just didn't have time to put my toe in those waters last year because I was getting the site up and running. But that's something I'm excited to start doing this year when that gets going as well. I'm going to go into a couple of announcements here. March and April over at letpurplerain.com. I'm going to be providing news and fantasy stock report updates from spring camps across the country. I'm going to be continuing the 7-part CFF coaching system series that you are watching today. This is going to be going over the best offensive systems for certain types of fantasy players. For example, like the episode you're watching here in the first one of the series, dual threat quarterbacks. I'm going to have tons of great guests like Josh throughout all these podcast episodes. This is going to be an invaluable tool for your CFF drafts. You're definitely going to want to be paying attention to it. And I also have a special announcement. Do you love college football? Do you love fantasy football? My name is Joe Arpasi, and I have just the thing for you. I'm the man behind letpurplerain.com, your premier college fantasy football resource. And I'm hosting a 52-man college fantasy football league.
New world order.
The winner of my league is going to take home this custom championship belt provided by this league's sponsor, armchampionshipbelts.com. If you want a chance to compete for this bad boy, go to letpurplerain.com and sign up to be a premium subscriber today. All premium subscribers are automatically entered into the drawings to see who makes this league, and I'm going to be running drawings from March all the way through July. That means the longer that you're a premium subscriber, the more chances you have to be entered into this 52-man challenge. Let me tell you something, brother. Winning this belt's not going to be easy. You're going to have to contend with the new world order of college fantasy football. You're not only going to be competing against me, you're going to be competing against Eric Froton from NBC Sports and FantasyPoints.com, Jared Palmgren from Chasing the Natty Podcast and CampusToCanton.com, and John McKechnie from RotoWire.com. So go sign up today to become a premium subscriber at letpurplerain.com so you have a chance to get a golden ticket to the show. You're not going to want to miss out on a chance to win this baby because this belt is just too sweet. Man, I'm extremely excited to be hosting the 2025 Battle for the Belt 52-man league challenge. Special thanks to armchampionshipbelts.com for being this event's sponsor. I'm going to be doing the first of 6 golden ticket giveaways live here on YouTube on Wednesday, March 19th. If you aren't already a premium subscriber, sign up now so you'll automatically be entered into the golden ticket giveaways. You can also check out my CFF apparel shop. There's a link at my homepage over at letpurplerain.com and a link in the description below. I've got short and long sleeve t-shirts, tons of different colors, can koozies. There's going to be more designs to come later in 2025, so hang in there. Right now, I'm still busy getting everything popping off for the 2025 fantasy season. And today on our show, we are reviewing the top CFF coaching systems for dual threat quarterbacks. YouTube will be the home of the preview show where we will review the number 11 through 15 coaching systems. LetPurpleRain.com will be the exclusive home to the top 10 coaching systems. For a coaching system to qualify, the career average for a coach's QB1 must be 8 carries per game or 96 carries per season, 30 rushing yards per game or 360 rushing yards per season, and a half a rushing touchdown a game or 6 rushing touchdowns per season. These are pretty liberal, outside of the 8 carries. These are pretty liberal standards, but I wanted to try and create something that did catch a good balance of coaches here. And when I rank the coaches that you're going to see today, I do it by a combination of factors. I take the career average fantasy points scored of the QB1. I rank everybody off of that. And then I adjust them based on the amount of seasons I have logged in my historical database that goes back to 2018. I do not use the 2020 year, by the way. But the coaches with more data will get a bump up in the rankings. Coaches that have less seasons of data will get a little bump down. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's dive into some college fantasy football. All right, we're going to start things off with our number 15 coach here, Jeff Choate, head coach over at Nevada. Players that would apply to him this year, and this is a competition, but as of right now, I'm putting AJ Blanco and Chubba Purdy, who is coming back. I only have 1 season of stats. This will probably be pretty quick to go through, but Brandon Lewis looked pretty good in 2024, scoring nearly 300 fantasy points. Pretty good efficiency on the ground with 157 carries for 775 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. You know, Josh, we don't have a large sample size of data or a returning quarterback situation. Having said that, could you see yourself drafting the winner of this position battle?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I think I think if it's Chubba Purdy, absolutely. I mean, Chubba Purdy is a dude that I mean, we know he's athletic. We've seen him do it in the Big Ten, pull away from defenders on long runs. And so if he's the guy, then that would be awesome. I mean, you got a new coordinator coming in this year, David Gilbertson, right? Matt Lubick is going back to Kansas to be with Lance Leopold. And so Gilbertson's coming in. He's going to be the play caller. Look, this guy, Gilbertson, he worked under Joe Moorhead for 4 years. He worked with Quentin Flowers, USF back in the day. So, and he's got some other, when he was, I think he was maybe NAIA, and he had some time there, and his quarterbacks are averaging 12 carries a game. So I think if it's Purdy, I like that. If it's not Purdy, then I'm afraid that AJ Bianco is going to be more of a pocket passer. And we're not going to see as many carries, not the 157 carries, but anybody that's doing miracle work with Brendan Lewis and making him a competent CFF quarterback is a guy that man, I want to be targeting his quarterbacks, and particularly Chubba Purdy, a guy that we've known has had talent for years. We just haven't seen it realized.
I like the system a lot too. And with that change at offensive coordinator, I don't have any coordinating years of experience in my database. That's why he's kind of by default has gone over to Jeff here as a head coach. But I'm right there with you. Like, I like the system a lot. And I can't remember if about a year ago, if Purdy was kind of the favorite going into fall camp in that position battle, but Brendan Lewis ended up running away with it. That's what my memory tells me. Do I have that wrong or do I have that right?
No, you're right. I mean, well, I think if we go by, the head coach's comments at the end of the season, he was like, hey, look, if Brendan Lewis was coming back, he wasn't necessarily going to be the starter. Like, he attributed the coaching more to Brendan Lewis's success than Brendan Lewis's like just pure talent or ability. And so he was kind of saying without saying that, man, Purdy might have been the guy regardless of whether Lewis came back this year.
All right, let's move on to our number 14 coach, Jeremy Chadwell, head coach over at Liberty. This year's player, even though it is an open competition, it does look very strongly like it's Ethan Vasco's job to lose. Chadwell has been, he's been at it since 2018, so we've got a nice bulk of history here. Caden Salter was amazing for him in 2023. 440 fantasy points, over 1,000 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns. If you look at if you look at the yards and the touchdowns on the screen and you just scroll down, that one season stands out like a sore thumb. The most 3 recent years minus that 2023 season hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been great. About almost 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. Almost 200 yards, 6 touchdowns. Almost 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. The 2018-2019 seasons, it does drag down his career average, but at the same time, 2023 kind of balances it out in my eyes. But a lot of us do view him and the success that Salter had. But I think when you view this big picture, you kind of see, it's about a upper 200 fantasy point performance seems to be the norm. Is kind of the way that I would view it, like 275. It's just kind of the way I would kind of view an average stats with his guys. And just that 2023 season, maybe it's just shining so bright that we lose sight of that 2024, 2022, 2021 production. I'm not really high on Vasco at this time. He and I don't know how much of it. I didn't get to watch a lot of his games, but his passing numbers were never really that great. Did the coaches give him an opportunity to throw? Was he just so bad that they weren't going to let him? Like, those are nuances I just don't have from the eyeball test. But do you have a different take on him? How do you view his how he would fit in the system and his potential fantasy success for 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where you look at the system and, I get, we talked about this before the show, but like not using 2020 overall because people just didn't play a lot of games, so many factors. But look, man, the last 5 years between Grace McCall and Caden Salter, the QB1 for Chadwell is averaging 27.5 fantasy points per game, 100 carries, basically 545 yards and 7 touchdowns. And last year Vasco did have, I think he had, let me see real quick, 107 carries, 447 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he's kind of right in line with like a Grayson McCall-ish, or this last year with Caden Salter, with what he would do on the ground. So I'm intrigued because, it was never with Grayson McCall or even with Caden Salter that they were like crushing it through the air. I mean, I think the most that anybody's thrown for in a system is 2,800 yards. Caden Salter did that in 2023, and then McCall did that in 2021. So we're not asking Vasco to be, crazy good. Is he a guy that I'm taking before round 20 in any best ball draft? Absolutely not. But
No.
He's a guy at the end of drafts, like a guy that can average 25 points a game. It's just like Chubba Purdy. Like, those guys are actually very valuable in that range. And so Vasco's not a guy that I'm going to discount. He's not a guy that I'm going after, a ton. But if he's sitting back there and he's around in those late rounds, then I'll take a shot.
I definitely agree with you. The rushing side of what he showed last year was good, but I'm even going to add another layer to that. He also had that where they had 2 other running backs chewing up carries as well. So they were really spreading those rushing attempts around in that backfield, and he still looked pretty good. And so I agree with you. I think these 2024 rushing numbers that we saw out of Salter is probably a very good floor to look at for Vasco this year. The way I kind of view Vasco with drafts is like, if you're in a best ball draft, I can agree with you. Take a shot on him here or there. Maybe don't get too many shares of him. Like I mentioned at the start, don't think he's going to be the next 2023 Caden Salter. Please don't.
Yeah.
We want you to be successful this year in fantasy. Please don't. Don't
for
reach
sure. Yeah.
Don't reach for him as your QB too.
Yeah. One of the sticky stats that I've been looking at this last year is that 21 of the top 24 QBs this last year had 27 total touchdowns. And the year before, it was like 20 out of 24 had 28 total touchdowns between rushing and passing. And a Jamie Chadwell quarterback has had, basically 30 plus touchdowns in every year since 2020. And they're playing at least 11 games. The only time that hasn't happened was this last year with Caden Salter,
Hmm.
and we know that he had a bad year. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
the
I mean,
passing game fell out for him, and that really is what held him down.
yeah, but like, you look at these other years, they don't have high passing yardage numbers, but man, the years before that, they're averaging 27 touchdowns,
Hmm.
which is just through the air alone, right? That's not including the 5 rushing touchdowns or so that they're going to pick up. So, there's like, if you're just going purely based off a system, and look, like Jamie Chadwell recruited Ethan Vasco, I believe, at Coastal Carolina. So there is a relationship here. There is, and he knows the quarterback. So I'm I'm intrigued again as a late round QB. He's a guy worth picking up, and like he's not going very high in drafts right now. He is
Hmm.
going in the 20s, so you're able to get him, and you're not paying premium price for him.
Yeah, and the last point I'll throw out before we move on to the next coach, like best ball, we're giving you that best ball opinion. One thing I'll throw out, if you're in a redraft league, my opinion definitely sinks more on him. There's probably maybe some other guys you can take a shot on because you don't have as deep of a QB roster. So I'm
Hmm.
not as big of a fan with him when it comes to redraft. Going now to our number 13 quarterback, we have Jason Candle, head coach from Toledo, and player that we've got this year is returning starter Tucker Gleason. Candle is another long tenured coach. He has had a lot of different coordinators, but I like using him because we see pretty reliable stats year after year, coordinator after coordinator. And 2018 and 2019 stats really dragged down his career averages. I include it because it happened. Those stats are there, but I really do focus on from 2021 on up. And when you look at the last 3 seasons, they've been really last four, yeah, last 3 seasons have been rock solid, almost exactly at 300 points. You go back 4 seasons to 2021, you're going down just a little bit to 275 back in Daquan Finn's first year as a starter. But he's been super reliable for dual threat quarterbacks these last 3 years. That is not going to change this year with Gleason back for a second year as a starter. How likely is it, Josh, that Gleason puts up career high fantasy points for Candle this season?
Are we saying the best that we've ever seen from Candle?
That like everything like we see on this chart, I should say. Everything that we see on
Yeah.
this chart, and it's not
I mean,
that. I mean, he only has to do 4 fantasy points more than last year to do it. So it's
yeah.
kind of a softball question for you there.
No, totally. And I mean, I think if you look at like averages, I mean, I definitely think he can do it for sure, right? I mean, he's got Junior Vanderos coming back, Trayvon Rudolph's coming in,
Hmm.
who I think can replicate Jamon Newton's numbers. And yeah, they're gonna run the ball for sure with him at QB. Um, it's interesting. So, little fun fact about Tucker Gleason: the play caller there, the passing game coordinator, offensive coordinator, his name's Robert Weiner. And Robert was a coach at Plant High School in Tampa, and I was the chaplain of his football team back in 2015 to 2017. And so, and Tucker Gleason was his high school quarterback.
Wow.
So, uh, Tucker Gleason has the built-in advantage of like literally his play caller from high school is also his OC and play caller at Toledo. So it's fun. I mean, those guys grow together. You saw Tucker Gleason get a lot better this last year.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think you're absolutely onto something where, he's another guy that could absolutely do really well. He came in as QB 18 last year. And so this is a guy that you can get some pretty good values on still this year. I believe he's still in the ADP range. I don't even know where he's going, to be honest, but
And
he's
guys,
not
this is
going like
very early
super
ADP.
high.
It's gonna like
Yeah.
you had one draft and the guy's ADP can swing a lot. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as June, but yeah, go ahead. Where is his ADP
Yeah.
kind of running?
About around 100, around 9, 10. So QB 20.
For a
So
guy that you could consider if he has a down year, 280 fantasy point floor.
yeah.
Like that's pretty solid right there.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as he doesn't get injured, this guy's
Yeah.
he's gonna do well.
And I've been taking an approach with, and I present this in my player rankings for everyone. Um, Pre-spring, be more conservative. Go with safer plays. Wait on projection picks, things like that, till later. Grabbing guys like a Tucker Gleason as your quarterback two is a great strategy. Or even you could do a quarterback one if you're going to do a wait on quarterback and then go bang bang quarterback. Just depending on how the board's playing out and who else is there. But yeah, Gleason's a great floor play. And if you're trying to play it safe in drafting a team that's going to be, a league and you're competing in, you don't want to whiff on your QB one or two, which is very easy to do with some other guys. And I'm not going to say DJ Lagway is a whiff guy, but like you very easily could whiff as well as hit it out of the park there. Whereas Tucker Gleason, not as high of a ceiling, but you're going to get a guy who's going to be getting you points every week.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like this is a guy that you can see on this chart that you have like he had 7 touchdowns, right? Really, which is in line, an average of what has happened the last 3 or 4 years with DeQuan Finn.
Mm-hmm.
And Tucker Gleason had 385 passing attempts last year. The most that DeQuan Finn ever had was 317. So talking about a guy that has 70 more passing attempts, which is the most since 2017 for Jason Candle when he was having really just pocket passers at that point. So this is a guy that's getting a high volume in the passing game, and 97 carries is easy to replicate. That's just 8 extra carries. And I think with Chip Trayanum coming in at running back, it's actually going to help Gleason a little bit with his efficiency here
Mm-hmm.
because that offense is just going to be crazy explosive. I think their points per game as an offense is going to go up from even what it was last year, which I think last year it was, they only averaged 28 points a game. So you're talking about, I think this whole offense is going to raise. And I think, Gleason's only going to benefit from this offense getting even better.
I can definitely agree with all of that there. And we move down now to our number 12 coach, Buster Faulkner, offensive coordinator, Georgia Tech. Here's another returning starter for him. We got Haynes King. King is not the flashiest name of this draft season, but he has one of the safest floors, a lot like Gleason that we were talking about before. He's averaged 123 carries and 10 and a half touchdowns over the last 2 years. 2023 just beat out 2018 for the career highs for Buster. 2018 was a pretty darn good year, about 245 fantasy points, but Haynes King in his first year as a starter got 351. They're both in that 230, 220 rush range, but King was way more productive on the ground. He's the only guy that's been getting double-digit rushing touchdowns. I was mentioning earlier, like my approach is find a safe guy, a guy with a good floor. And especially, it seems like you can wait on quarterbacks. Like Haynes King is one of those guys. I have no problem waiting at quarterback and taking as a quarterback one. Like you could take a Haynes King, Tucker Gleason as your QB one and two, wait to get those two guys, and you can be in great shape. Find yourself a flyer later on that maybe helps you shoot for the moon. But if you miss, you got two super solid guys there. So I really view Gleason and King in the same boat. Just King, I think, should have a higher ceiling if everything kind of comes together. And it really comes into, because I'm a big believer in Faulkner's system for dual threat quarterbacks, and especially what we saw just right out of the gate at Georgia Tech. So you assume it's only going to get better the longer the system's been installed. What's your opinion on the system and Faulkner overall as a coaching asset?
Yeah, I mean, the guy is a freaking genius, and he gets better with time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like his time um, with Munkin at Georgia really unlocked him in different ways. I mean, because before, you have Justice Hansen back in the day. I think you have him in the 2018, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
had 2 other years with Justice Hansen, and Hansen was, he threw for almost 4,000 yards and had 415 rushing yards the year before, 2017. Like, look, Haynes King isn't going to do that. That's not the system at Georgia Tech. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing. But like, Faulkner is just a beast as a play caller. I mean, he's incredible. And look, I mean, Haynes King, right? 2 years ago, has averages 28 points a game, comes in as QB 11. This last year, we all were saying that Georgia Tech has the hardest schedule out there. Like, it's just insane, right? We're like, don't draft Haynes King. He's only playable in like 5 games. And then he like messes up his shoulder and can't throw a ball. But he's still playing in those games. He plays 11 games and averages 25.8 fantasy points per game. That's insane.
He's reliable as hell. And
Like, that is,
he's a gutty warrior too.
bro, he came in as QB 31 without a right arm. Like,
Well,
this
he
this
he
cat,
has a half a right arm when healthy. Let's be honest.
I
I
mean,
don't think he's the strongest passer, but he's good enough with this system.
bro, he against Miami, he was not even throwing the ball at all, though. I mean, look, this cat, there's not going to be no degradation of Haynes King coming
This
out of
year,
my
yep.
mouth, because look, the schedule's a lot easier, in my opinion. And we saw what he did when he was healthy. And I mean, the kid's incredible. I do like, I think both Eric Rivers and Dean Patterson from Florida International coming in there. And I think they'll be able to replace I think it's a better overall, like, wide receiver core than just Eric Singleton and Malik Rivers, essentially, and Chase Lane. So I really like everything about what's setting up here for Georgia Tech, for Haynes King to have a great year. I think, even if he doesn't come back to QB 11, I think he still falls in that 18 to 24 range, which perfect. That's great, man. Like, we'll take that all day, especially with the rushing touchdowns. He's gonna get 10 to 11. That's what he's done in the last couple of years, and I expect that to continue. So, raving fan of Faulkner, raving fan of Haynes King. And I think that they built a great wide receiver core and a great, a lot of good playmakers around them. So I think this is awesome.
And all those playmakers have a lot of game experience under their belts. One thing I've really focused on, and I've noticed since the transfer portal started, is specifically talking guys that move around. A guy will transfer in, and when you're trying to figure out, like, who do I think might have the edge in a position battle, it seems like even if a guy's a little less talented, the guy that has more game experience tends to win out the majority of the time. And every skill position in this offense are guys with a bunch of game experience under their belt. So that's one thing I also really do like. And I bet you, to them, they're aiming ACC championship and playoff push or bust. Like, I think that's how big their expectations are for 2025 within their program.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Our last coach here for the preview show is Dean Kennedy, offensive coordinator from James Madison. The players here, this is kind of a jumbled mess. We have last year's starter, Alonza Barnett. We have transfer Matthew Sluka and transfer Camden Coleman. Kennedy has more experience from the FCS level that's not tracked in my database. I really only track years in the FBS, with the exception of the first year a coach moves up from FCS to FBS. I'll use their last year of FCS stuff. But once they've been in the FBS level, I just stick to that. So that's one reason why we only have 1 year of experience on here. But, I mentioned Sluka. Sluka played for Kennedy at Holy Cross with a lot of success. And so him coming in kind of overturns the apple cart a little bit of what should have been Barnett just as the locked-in returning starter. And before that Sluka transfer, like, Barnett was a top 10 quarterback in my eyes. If he just would have left in there and they didn't open up this QB competition, I can't really say the reasoning why they did that, because Barnett was pretty darn good. 313 fantasy points. Ran the ball 135 times for about 450 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was not bad through the air without really a lot of targets. I mean, his best target was a tight end. So I actually felt like he had a really good year for a first year as a starter that came out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, we're opening up the quarterback position and bringing in a bunch of guys. So it's added a lot of question marks in the fantasy community. Like, what do you make of this situation for 2025?
Yeah, so Barnett, I think it was the last play of the game, their last game of the season, he tore his ACL.
I forgot about that.
That's why they're bringing in guys. He's not playing this year. Is basically the speculation.
Or if he gets healthy, he won't be good enough to be able to compete.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're a guy that's using your legs the way that Barnett does. So they brought in Sluka. Sluka turned down SEC NIL offers to be a backup to come be the presumptive starter at JMU. I mean, they did bring in Camden Coleman. Camden Coleman threw for 2,000 yards at Richmond. I'm not considering him. If he's going to throw for 2,000 yards at Richmond, and Sluka did, 2,500 at Holy Cross, we're just going to go with Sluka, considering he rushed for 1,200 yards at
Yeah.
Holy Cross twice under Dean Kennedy. Dean Kennedy was the QB coach in 2022, and then he was the offensive coordinator in 2023. So, look, I mean, Sluka averaged 30 points a game, 31 and a half points a game under Dean Kennedy at Holy Cross. So it's his job to lose at this point. I mean, I think he's pretty safe, but he's not being treated that way. I mean, he's getting drafted, pretty late. But man, like Sluka is the type that can absolutely be a league winner. JMU as a team, like they have just I mean, you think about the years, and some of it was definitely under a different regime and head coach, but they just nailed
The
head
portal.
coaching hires
Yeah,
and
I mean
offensive coordinator,
everything
all
for
of it.
managing their
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, I mean they're incredible. I went to JMU, so I'm familiar
Yep.
with some of their stuff, and so look, like I mean we can trust whoever's going to be the quarterback's going to be fantasy relevant because they just have been for so long, and I think that's going to be Matthew Sluka this year, and would be drafting him pretty aggressively. I think I have him ranked in my top 20 quarterbacks right now. And so I'm probably not going to move off that unless we get some kind of news that Sluka's just not, doesn't have it. But look, he beat out Haj Malik Williams last year, and I think Haj Malik Williams is actually pretty good.
I think he was better than Sluka, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, coaches didn't right away, so.
Well, and maybe part of why they put Sluka in there is because, and I know there's a lot of arguments about NIL deal and how it all went out, but like, if you're saying you're going to pay a player, sometimes you're kind of forced to plug him in there because you don't want to flush away the money. But looking at this situation and circling into the upcoming year, like I said, I forgot about the fact that Barnett tore his ACL. I definitely agree with you. Sluka's way better than Coleman. March and April are the months here that I'm doing my deep dives into each team. So my way too early rankings, which are what's out and what's going to stay out until my draft guide, that is just kind of early overview. And then really diving into the player pool, double checking guys that are out that I have in my database versus what's actually on the spring rosters. That's what I'm just starting to go through now. And I usually start at the big schools and work my way down. But that's one thing that, since I haven't done James Madison yet, I forgot about the Barnett injury. But I'd agree with you, taking that all into effect. Sluka's going to be pretty good. Obviously, I don't think he looked that good passing the ball at UNLV, but coming into a system that we know he's already played in and had success, you definitely have to push him up a bit. I obviously, because I'm now thinking about this with Barnett out of the mix, I probably would end up putting him higher. And it's just one of those things too of like, I can't say where I would put him in because once I start doing my deep dives, I'm actually also running projections. I like sinking my teeth a bit more in the numbers. So I'm just not there to be able to make that sort of comment with it. But I'll just kind of give a general comment. I could see myself putting him in the top 20, like you mentioned you've done with yours.
Yeah, I mean, you don't pick Sluka because you think he's a good passer. I mean, they beat two Power 4 programs with him as the starting quarterback at UNLV, and it's because the kid can run the ball. He averaged 1,200 yards under Dean Kennedy. I mean, that's what he does. That's what they're going to do at JMU. That's the strength of their team, like you said. Like, it's not like, I mean, they have some good, I think, up-and-coming wide receivers, but, I mean, what do? They got George Pettaway, they got Knight, and then now they got Sluka. I mean, they're going to run the mess out of this ball, run out RPO, and
lean on their defense.
They're going to crush it. Yeah, I mean, that's what they do. And so, I mean, Sluka, again, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, he as our boy Froton says, he's a solo threat. And I'll be very happy to have a solo threat that rushes for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Gotcha. And that wraps up us up here. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for watching the CFF Coaching Systems Dual Threat Quarterbacks Preview Show here on the Let Purple Rain podcast on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. This is the first of a 7-part series on CFF Coaching Systems. It's going to be an invaluable tool for your drafts. You can find the entire article series and everything for these videos over at letpurplerain.com and the Let Purple Rain podcast on YouTube. I'm going to continue these amazing guests on the series and the podcast all the way through April. So this is going to be running throughout the spring and helping you figure out those systems to target and what schools to target. I want to also thank again Josh for being on the show. You can find his work at fantasypoints.com. He's also the co-host of CFF All Access podcast. You can find that show on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel at Fantasy Points. And once again, you can follow him on X on the handle that's listed on the screen. Josh, tell everyone about what you've got planned for the rest of March and going into 2025.
Yeah, we should have our projections out either soon or by the time that we release the show. They should be up. So we're projecting over 1,000 players. Basically, a quarterback, 2 running backs, 4 or 5 wide receivers, and a tight end or 2 as well. And so we'll have that out, and then we'll have our consensus rankings for our team over there at Fantasy Points, and then we'll see what comes from there. Definitely the podcast, and figure out what we need to write from there. But those are the big things we're working on right now.
Very cool. I want to thank you to everybody who's reading and watching at letpurplerain.com and on the YouTube channel here. You guys are the reason I'm able to keep doing this work. Your support means more than you know, and I'm extremely grateful. I want to send a special thank you to one of my new premium subs, a guy pretty well known in the CFF space, Bacon Fueled. He took advantage of my 30% discount for an annual premium subscription. I got tons of amazing content coming all throughout 2025. And with that battle for the belt, if you are a premium subscriber, you are automatically entered for the drawings to be able to get in that 52-man league. Once again, please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, check out my 2025 Way Too Early mock draft video. You'll find a link at the end of this video for that. Thanks for joining the Let Purple Rain podcast. Your CFF reign starts here.